Hey everyone, I just wanted to do a quick video today just highlighting the samurai buildings from Sarissa Precision that I've purchased. They're sort of Japanese buildings, I suppose. I had done a little bit of a different technique than I normally do as far as prepping the buildings, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about it and just show one of the buildings that I've finished and the style that I'm going to be doing them in. And so these are, as MDF buildings, are, I've found in the past, it's been a while since I've done an MDF building. I found one thing that I didn't like about them is, depending on the kind of spray rattle can primer that I've used, I've noticed that it would oftentimes suck up the primer, both in the edges and just in general. And it would almost swell at times, depending on the manufacturer and the MDF and the primer paint. There would just be this swelling that would happen due to the moisture content. People that I talk to will sometimes acknowledge this, and then others will say with their rattle can they never have this problem. I looked it up online, and it is something that most people, when you look into it, will acknowledge that this is a possibility and a problem. One of the things, and for you may consider this overkill and you may not, just depending on your experience with this, is people will use Mod Podge, which is, as I understand it, I mean, it's called it says a water-based glue, sealer, and finish. Some people will use this, and they'll also at times even just mix it with a paint. Because I knew that there would be brown tones throughout the majority of the buildings, I mixed a brown paint. I used just a craft paint that I could get at Michael's for this, and I went 1-to-1 with it. I believe, add a couple of drops of water per a large amount of paint, not a lot of water. So we're talking like, 1/20th, or just like just to add a little more flow is what I had done. There were positive and negative aspects to doing this. Overall, I would recommend it, but I would just tell you where I had a little bit of trouble. For your visual here, this is untreated MDF. This is the Mod Podge and sealer, so that's why it's given that brown tint to it. And then this is sort of a finished product, which I'll show in a moment after this discussion on the preparation. I found when using an airbrush, whether it be at a high pressure or just a very watery based liquidy paint, that spraying a surface that had the Mod Podge on it, you are looking at, it's almost like kind of trying to put something on a gloss finish. Like you can, instead of getting a powdery buildup of paint like you would normally expect, or like just a gradation of paint, you can get like a runniness where it's sort of collecting on the surface and deciding to run. And so that is something I will consider when I'm doing it in the future. When hand brushing on the building and it not being highly watery, like it just being sort of a normal consistency that I would have, I had no problem, and it painted onto the Mod Podge paint mixture surface very well. And I didn't get any swelling like I normally would, because there was no swelling when putting the Mod Podge paint mixture on. It accepted it and did very well. There were a couple of spots where I did on the edges put a little extra, but it was kind of a nice preparation to do. It is some extra work, and so if people aren't having a problem with their choice of rattle can paint and I suppose the water content or the type of content of that paint with their particular brand of MDF building, they may not want to do this process if this may seem like a lot to brush all of this on. But I think I will actually. I left one just to see how all of this went before I just continued and soldiered on with all of them this way. I'm going to take this all away, and just for those that are interested in the Sarissa Precision building, for this period, I will show you with some miniatures in front of it how it looks. So with this building, I did, essentially I base painted it a color. I did a highlight over certain surfaces, so where you see it darker up certain stripes, that is the original base color, and then I had used a lighter paint over it to just create a bit of a two-toned look. And now there are aspects to this where I did put a lighter color in there. This top piece, I painted a base color, and then I used a wash over the entire thing, and then did a kind of like a sloppy dry brush is what I would call it over it. There is a floor as well, like a floor texture, I should say. There we go, that's better. The entire model, I used one, except for the roof, because of the blue, I used a gray wash. The entire model, regardless of the wood color or even this light color, I used a sepia wash. And in some ways, I felt like that kind of tied it all together. I could have went for a brighter look anywhere, but really in particular here, I thought that it looked nice like this, that it looks just fine. And I liked how the sepia wash, it sort of beat down like washes do my highlight, but then also just sort of tied it all together in some ways. So yeah, you know, it's I've never painted this style of building before. I didn't want it to look like a North American weathered cabin that I would oftentimes do for my French Indian War period. And so I thought this came out nice for my very amateurish, you know, understanding of medieval Japan. I don't really have a good understanding, but basically, I'll show here what it looks like just with the miniatures in front of the door, which is helpful. But I think these, they're not really meant to. There's not a flat step there, but I think that these work just fine scale-wise, and it's meant to be 28 mil. Well, hope you folks enjoy that, and if you're interested in getting buildings like this, hopefully this will help you in some way, and have a good one. Take care.